there friends, Rebecca here, the Dragon Librarian from Farmington Community Library, and I'm here today to talk about a book that is really awesome and super special, and I wanted to talk about it specifically this month. We still have a little bit of November left. This is the very last week, right? Just a few days left, and I wanted to talk about this book because it is Indigenous Peoples History Month. So I really wanted to talk about this book because it's a book written by an Indigenous author about an Indigenous character in the community, and it's just phenomenal. It's absolutely amazing. So this is a book that, yeah, it's great to read this time of year in November, but you can really read it anytime because it's absolutely phenomenal. I love this book so much. So it is called The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. Now, this was the first Louise Erdrich book that I've ever read. It came out last year, I believe, and she's a really fantastic, famous author. I hadn't read anything by her. I picked this one up because it was getting a lot of really great attention and critical acclaim, and I thought, well, I haven't read anything by her. I would like to give her a shot. Immediately after reading this, I put all the rest of her books on my TBR list because I just feel like I want to read everything by her. She's absolutely phenomenal. This book is so good. It almost made it onto my top 5 list last year of best books I read. But it's just phenomenal. There are so many things going on in this book. So basically, it's about a Indigenous woman named Tookie who was incarcerated for a really ridiculously stupid crime. I'm not even going to tell you what it is because I think you need to read it to see what it is because it's hilarious and very silly. So she gets incarcerated. She is now out and she is working at a bookstore in Minneapolis. And this book starts in All Souls Day in 2019, and it takes place over the course of 1 year. So it goes from, November, basically, 2019 to November 2020. So as we know, many things began happening in 2020, one of them being COVID. So this book deals with a lot of different stuff over the course of a year. And while it feels like it might be very daunting, COVID is talked about in depth. Police brutality is talked about in depth. Violence and stuff about, against Indigenous and Native communities is talked about. And while that might seem like this is a lot of heavy stuff for one book that's not even really that long, it's not. It's done so well and so wonderfully that it felt like a catharsis to read it. It felt like, okay, here we go. I'm reading about COVID during COVID. But it didn't feel like that. It felt like, oh, look, these characters are going through the same things that I was going through. And they are feeling the same things I was feeling. And it just made me feel a little bit more complete and whole and not so isolated to read about other people experiencing that. Sometimes I think people write about terrible things like COVID and in sort of like a shock value sort of situation. But this is not like that at all. This was more of a sense of, this is something you went through. This is something I went through. Let's, feel that together. And it's absolutely phenomenal. So that is a really great part of it. But the reason why the story starts at this point is because the most annoying customer of this bookstore dies at the start of this book. She starts this book. The book starts with this character dying, and then the entire book, the bookstore is being haunted by this character. So Tookie is trying to get to the bottom of this. Why is this person haunting this bookstore? Why does she seem to be haunting her? And trying to get to the bottom of that. So it's also a ghost story and a mystery as well. It is absolutely phenomenal. There are so many different aspects of this book. So many things going on in this book. It's incredible. And the writing is phenomenal. The writing is just really great. You might worry that a book that's dealing with so many different things all at one time in one story would be kind of all over the place, and it never felt like that. It's super coherent. It's really well written, and even the title itself, The Sentence, is very important to this story for a few different ways. So I just want to take a second to read the first paragraph of this story to see if you will get as hooked as I was. While in prison, I received a dictionary. It was sent to me with a note. This is the book I would take to a deserted island. Other books were to arrive from my teacher. But as she had known, this one proved of endless use. The first word I looked up was the word sentence. I had received an impossible sentence of 60 years from the lips of a judge who believed in an afterlife. So the word with its yawning sea, belligerent little e's, with its hissing sibilants and double ends. This repetitive bummer of a word, made of slyly stabbing letters that sounded an isolate human T. This word was in my thoughts every moment of every day. Without a doubt, had the dictionary not arrived, this light word that lay so heavily upon me would have crushed me, or what was left of me after the strangeness of what I had done. Amazing, right? It's just such a fantastic book. And like I said, so that is one of the first ways that the title, the sentence is really, really important to the story. So it's a sentence, like a story sentence, but it's also the sentence of her going to prison and many other things as well. So I really, really highly recommend this book. If you're a fan of this author already, this is phenomenal and amazing. And if you haven't read it, you need to. And if you're like me, who is new to this author's work, this is a wonderful place to start. Absolutely wonderful book. Loved it for so many different reasons. And I highly, highly recommend it. This Sentence by Louise Erdrich. Well, that's what we've got for you guys today. I hope that that book sounds super incredible and that you end up loving it as much as I do. So you can also check this out from Farmington Community Library. And thank you so much for watching, my friends. Have a wonderful rest of the day.